back-to-back test against MWR versus the DNA air filters. So this is race MWR against the performance DNA for these. Everything exactly the same, so it's a complete back-to-back test, like within 10 minutes of the runs. So it's full set of runs to get the maximum power on the MWR, then swap the filters out, no other changes, maximum power on the DNA. Let's go, let's see what it does. We're going to fit a RACETORX gear shift support as well to this, and the RACETORX thumb brake, because they're really cool. What happens when you want 6 speeds of brake cleaner in an engine? So this is the before and after. So the blue is actually the MWR and the red is the DNA. So overall it's a 1 brake difference. Exactly the same temperature in the room, same engine temp, same tyre, same chain, everything's exactly the same, completely identical. And then the maximum power that we got on the MWR was 194.1 and on the DNA it was 195.7. But that's at peak. But it actually, which was quite interesting, the DNA seemed to make that little bit extra between like 9,000 revs and roughly 12. And you can see there it's like 3, nearly 4 brake up, which is quite nice. That's a nice little extra bit of gain. I mean, when we're racing, which this is a race bike, every little helps. So probably going to stick with the DNA. So this is the gear shift support for the ZX-10s. So we've got a chain guard, to basically stop the chain from actually going into the casing, and then you've got the actual lever with the bearing on. So we're gonna, it's already exposed, it actually already has a guard on it, but we're gonna remove that one and put the RACETORX one on, and then we're gonna take this the shift shaft off and then replace it with this one. We're also gonna shorten this as well because these are in really poor orientation. That should be further around to magnify the forces. So we're gonna change that as well. Let's go. It's all right, it's dead loose. Oh my god, that was crap on it. And then just insult to injury, that's a different one. Suppose it can go in the box because the box is going in there. Undo these, undo this, pull that off, clean this all up, and then I can put the new arm on. And then I'm also going to take this off and replace this one for a slightly shorter one because the arm's in a really poor position. I'm also going to remove this toe end because this toe, it's like so close. Can't get your foot underneath, it's horrendous. So I'm going to move that further out again. Oh my god, that's tight. Could have used a ratchet spanner or even a ratchet, but I didn't do any of those things. Instead, I'm just going to stand there for an hour and a half, spinning this nut. So the gear shift support it basically adds an extra bearing to the end, and it gives it a little bit more support, so there's less lateral movement up and down. So it turns all other forces into a rotation. And on this particular model, it also changes the lever arm position, so you can see how much longer that is. So what this does is it magnifies the forces more. Bit of tight of lock, bit of Loctite. If you want to know why I blow it, it's so that it pushes the Loctite all the way around so it doesn't end up in a big blob, and then when you push it in, it just all falls off. I've done that for about 20 years. Now we have noticed that the regulator rectifier bracket is broken. We will address this at a later date when we get a new one. Okay, so to fit this, you've got to basically you've got pinch bolt there, and then that's a locker, so that actually locks into the recess that's on the shaft. So you have to just undo this a little bit. You can actually leave it in a little bit when you put it on, just to make sure that it goes through. So when you fit in these, you basically you don't need to put any grease on or anything, but you do need to just align it so that what you want is for both of these to be like parallel. If these are parallel, what it'll mean is it'll magnify the forces so that when it changes gear, it'll give you the best amount of force on there. It also puts it in a perfect tangent to be able to rotate the shaft. So we just kind of get it lined up close. Just pull this out for now, and then slide that on, just like that. And then you've got spaces that you need to fit behind it, which will allow this carrier to be supported by the 4 bolts. Try and use Loctite if you've got it. It just means it's less likely for them to come undone. So we just pop a little bit of Loctite on these. Oh yeah. Nice. Space room behind, bolt through. One in. Try and do them evenly as well. Again, giving it the maximum amount of support, keeping it nice and flat. These don't grunge these all. It's just a case of just making sure they're nipped up. You're talking like 10 Newton meters. Done. So that's on. Now we've just got to bolt that onto there. I'm going to take this off because that is quite stiff. So I'm going to take this gear lever off. I'm also going to change this shaft over, re-grease this bearing so that it moves nice and free, because anywhere where you've got resistance, I mean, you've got a bit of extra because of the fact that it's tied down, but even so it should still move freely. It just means that it's going to make the gear changes slower, because obviously you're having to overcome the force of that resistance. Also, look how much water is coming out of it. So once you've got this lined up and these are tight with a bit of Loctite on, then you can put this back in, lock that off. That will stop the shaft from being able to come out. And then you've got another one on the top, which is your pinch. So pop your grub screw in, lock that off. Nice and neat. And then for your pinch one, do the same. You basically just tighten that up. So I noticed on these are quite good rear sets. They've actually got little roller bearings in here, little ball bearings. But someone's put a washer there, which then clamps against the outer part of the bearing and then against the foot peg. So obviously, all that's going to do is transmit, this is fixed, which makes this fixed, which makes this fixed because it's on the outer side. What it needs is to be have a little washer on the inside so that it, on the inner bearing, the inner race can move. If it's on the outer side, it can't move. Genius. If you're putting Loctite on these, make sure you don't get any Loctite on the bearing. Oh, fantastico. Look at that, it's like, it actually moves, who'd have thought it? Little pro tip. If we're classed as pros. Pro tip. Whenever you're doing rear sets, whenever you're setting these up, you want it so that you can adjust this up and down. So you've got 2 points where you've got left-handed and right-handed thread. You want to be able to basically spin this to get your position of your lever right. So when I'm looking at this now, it's completely decked out here. That's okay. I don't really mind too much about that. You've got a little bit of thread exposed there. That's okay. That's not a problem. this is decked out there, and then you've got thread exposed here. So you can't turn this. You can turn it out, but you can lengthen it, but you can't shorten it because you've got loads of thread there, nothing here. So what you want is you want this to be even, so that you've got thread above it on either side, so that you can go in and out, which means you can lengthen it and shorten it to be able to make the lever go up and down. Just little things, but it does make a difference, because if you've got it like this and you need to shorten this, the only thing you can do is take the entire thing off to adjust this. It's pain. Think. Don't drink and drive. You've basically got the same kind of thread on both ends of this. So you've got roughly about the same amount. So look, if you can overlay them, they're pretty much the same. So start them and try and get them to go at the same time. Bear in mind that's a left-handed thread, so you'd actually go the opposite way to what you would normally do. So you want it so that you basically take all the thread off. That's what I normally do when I'm setting these up. So completely remove all the thread so you can't see any of it. You can see that there's not much thread exposed. We're just gonna have a little guide at this now. When you're fitting these as well, you want to make sure that you're not going to foul on this. So RACETORX actually gives you a bit of a spacer. So you fit that, pop that on, and then again a little bit of Loctite. If I can do this without pouring 5 litres on it. There you go. A little bit of Loctite on there. These different holes will change how much leverage you've got. So it'll change how much force you've got, but it'll also change how much movement you've got. So the closer in you are, actually it'll be the smaller amount of movement. The further away you are, the more movement you've got. So it all depends on how it feels and what you want it to do. That's just personal preference. So if you want to be able to put a maximum amount of a big force on there, but you've got a bit more movement, well, have it on the further away position. It'll mean that you're going to transmit the maximum amount of force through the gearbox, but it will also mean that you've got bigger movement. The shorter in you are, the more force you'd have to put on, but the less movement.